A day out at Alton Towers gives you the opportunity of seeing and studying design and technology ideas in action. This video has 9 segments looking at important design and technology ideas in the areas of motion, control and structures. Select the segment that deals with the topic you are studying. Sit back and enjoy the ride whilst thinking about what is going on.
One of the more gentle rides at Alton Towers is the Sky Ride. It's also a useful ride, transporting you round the park. The Sky Ride cars travel in a straight line. Their motion is linear. How is this linear motion created? The cars hang from a cable, which is driven by large motors. Look out for the driving wheels inside the stations. The cable moves at a constant speed, but the cars must slow down at the stations. Watch the cars carefully as they approach the station. You'll be able to see the decoupling mechanism operating. The cars move very slowly through the station. Look for the mechanism that keeps them moving. There are other interesting things to look for on the Sky Ride. Where do you think the power for the music in the cars comes from? There are lots of examples of linear motion at Alton Towers. They're all driven from motors giving rotary motion. Look for the mechanisms that convert the rotary motion into linear motion. Some of them may be less obvious than others. How is the Thunderlooper train driven? How are the trains on roller coasters like Nemesis taken up to the start of their ride? What makes the logs move along the log flume? At Alton Towers, look for rides with linear motion. Find out how the linear motion is produced.
The Astrodancer is just one ride where you are spun around. This type of motion is rotary motion. On the Astrodancer, you will experience more than one rotary motion at once. The different rotations combine to make an exciting ride. How fast are the various rotations of the Astrodancer cars? One of the rotations is not driven by a motor. What does cause this motion? Rapid rotation makes most people feel dizzy. The Astrodancer is designed to make sure that you can still walk at the end of the ride. The teacup ride is very similar to the Astrodancer. How fast are the rotations on this ride? The teacups also have an undriven rotary motion. How is this rotation made to happen? Rides for younger children also use rotary motion. How fast is the motion on this ride? On the Enterprise, your rotation is very rapid and changes from being horizontal to vertical. How fast is the rotation of the Enterprise? Does this rotation make you more or less dizzy than the Astrodancer? Some rides combine rotary motions in unusual ways. Compare different rotary rides to see which you think is the most exciting. Are the fastest rides always the best? The pirate ship makes use of rotary motion. How does the experience of this ride differ from other rides with rotary motion? At Alton Towers, look for rides with rotary motion. Find out how the rotary motion is produced, and find out how these rides feel.
The Energiser is one of the newest rides at Alton Towers. It is also one of the most unusual. The motion is very complex. Do the arms rotate at a constant speed? Why doesn't the car turn upside down as the arms rotate? The mechanisms that produce the Energiser's motion are based on a simple idea. Why has one of the Energiser's arms got a flexible joint in it? There are other rides at Alton Towers where you will experience complex motion. What kinds of motion do you experience when you ride the Enterprise? Watch rides with complex motion and try to see how the motion is produced. Then try out the ride and find out what the motion feels like. Even quite gentle rides can include quite complex motion. There are other examples of complex motion at Alton Towers. The mechanism that rings this bell is a 4-bar linkage. At Alton Towers, look for rides with complex motion. Find out how the complex motion is produced. Find out how these rides feel.
The haunted house contains a ride with a difference. As you board the train and roll out of sight, you're entering a world of surprises. Perhaps even more surprising is that all the surprises you encounter are computer-controlled. The computer system also makes sure that the ride, taking place in darkness, out of view of the operators, is a safe ride. In fact, all of the rides at Alton Towers are computer controlled to guarantee your safety. On the log flume, it is only safe for one log at a time to be on the drop. Sometimes you will hover at the top of the drop while the log in front drops down it. A sensor at the foot of the drop detects a log moving away from the danger zone. This tells a computer that the drop is now clear of logs. The computer switches on a roller to push you over the edge. How do you think the camera knows when to take your photograph? The Astrodancer is fully computer controlled. This computer controls the motion of the ride and checks that all the riders are locked in place before it allows the ride to start. Nemesis is controlled by the most sophisticated computer system at Alton Towers.
Everything clear, stand by.
When the operators instruct the ride to start, 3 computer systems check that everything is ready. Each restraint is linked directly to the computers. The ride will only start when they are all locked in place. Once you start to fall, the computers have no control until they operate the brakes to bring you safely to a standstill. At Alton Towers, look for rides that might be computer controlled. Look for sensors that provide information for the computer. And look for safety systems that might be computer controlled.
Nemesis is controlled by the most sophisticated computer system at Alton Towers. As you hurtle down the track, you reach speeds over 80 kilometers per hour. You're rolling freely. But when you approach the station, you're brought to a gentle halt by the brakes. The brakes on Nemesis are air brakes. They're designed to be always on unless the computer system turns them off. Look at how the brakes operate. They're switched rapidly by the computer to slow the train at just the correct rate. Speed sensors on the track measure the train's speed as the brakes are operating. The information on speed is fed back to the computers. The feedback makes sure that the speed control is accurate. Why is this accuracy important? The Thunderlooper is another ride where control of the brakes is important. Your train is braked a little just before you rush backwards through the station. Why does this happen? The train stops at exactly the same place in the station each time. Why is this important? The Thunderlooper brakes operate on a brake shoe under the train. Sensors hidden in the track allow the computer system to control the train's speed as it slows to a stop. The brakes on the Corkscrew operate in a similar way. Watch the brakes working. Sometimes they need to stop your train. At others, they simply slow it. How do you think the computer decides which to do? At Alton Towers, look for rides where the brakes might be computer controlled. Watch the brakes working. Look for speed sensors near the brakes. These show where there is feedback.
coasters at Alton Towers are supported by structures. These structures have to be rigid. The corkscrew structure must keep its shape as your train rushes round. Watch the structure carefully as a train goes past. How much movement can you see? There will be a little bit of movement. This is more obvious in the loops because the loop structures are only supported near their bases. The first loop is supported where the train enters it. What shapes do you notice in this structure? The Beast is another ride with a rigid structure. Look at the shapes that its framework is made from. Look for places in the structure that move a little as the ride passes by. Like the corkscrew's loops, the loop of the Thunderlooper is only supported at its base. Look for movement in this loop as the train passes. The ends of the track are supported very firmly. Most of the structure supporting Nemesis has a different type of design because the track is above the train most of the time. The track is also near the ground most of the time. There are structures that must remain rigid all around Alton Towers. At Alton Towers, look for places where the structures have to be rigid. Note down their shapes.
The pirate ship is really a very large swing. You swing to a much greater height than is possible on a playground swing. The structure supporting the ship rests on the ground. It's not fixed down at all. It has been designed so that it doesn't topple over as the ship is swinging. Look carefully at the structure. Why is it so stable? The structure that supports the wheel of the Enterprise has to move. Because of this, the wheel has only two supports. How does the design of the ride and these supports keep the ride stable all the time? Structures topple over when they are not properly balanced. As the top of the wave swinger tilts over, its center of mass moves out from the center of the supporting pillar. How does this ride keep its stability? The Energiser is another ride with a moving center of mass. Look at the legs that support the ride. As the arms rotate, these legs vibrate. How does the Energiser remain stable? At Alton Towers, look out for rides with a centre of mass that moves. Find out how their structures keep them stable.
rides at Alton Towers have structures to support them. These structures have to support large loads. A full train on the Beast weighs the same as 2 or 3 full family cars. How strong a structure is depends on the members it is made from. You gain a lot of speed as you rush down the first drop, and at the end of this section, your train places a large force on the structure. The members of the structure at this point are quite large. The structure of the corkscrew also has to support large loads, especially when the train corners at high speed. What shape are the members that make up the corkscrew structure? The biggest force the structure supports is when the train goes through the loops. What do you notice about the structures that support these loops? The first loop carries the largest force and has extra supporting members. Look at the shapes of the members in structures around the park at Alton Towers. Their shapes give you clues about the forces the member has to support. For example, pillars are usually used to resist compression forces and are often loaded from above. Wires and ropes are used for members that are always in tension. At Alton Towers, look at the shapes and sizes of the members that support the rides. Find members that are in tension. Find members that have to withstand very large forces.
The roller coaster structures at Alton Towers are designed to stand up to forces that are constantly changing. As you enter the loop on the Thunder Looper, your train will be moving at about 95 kilometers per hour. This causes large and rapidly changing forces in the loop. The loop is only supported around its base. Where the loop is unsupported, it moves as the train passes by. The forces produced in the corkscrew loops are similar to those in the Thunder Looper structure. Watch as the train passes through the loops. Look for movement in other parts of the structure. At which bits of the ride is there most movement in the structure? The effect of the forces produced by a moving train can be seen clearly in the Beast structure. Where are there the largest movements in the structure? What happens to the train at these points? On Nemesis, you'll be moving at speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour. Nemesis is one of the smoothest rides at Alton Towers. This is because its structure is completely rigid, despite the large forces on it. Look at the structure supporting Nemesis. How is it different from the structure supporting other roller coasters at Alton Towers? Unlike Nemesis, the Energiser has a very simple and light structure. The motion of your car will be very vigorous. The effect of this motion can be seen in the vibration of the supporting legs. At Alton Towers, look for places on rides where there might be large forces. See how much movement the structures allow as trains pass by.
For more information and to book your trip to Alton Towers, telephone 0990 20 40 60.